All right, guys, welcome back. Today we have a very exciting guest. We have Charles Cormier here joining us currently in Mexico. He started over 60 companies, including a nootropics company, which was seen on Dragon's Den. And he is doing a lot of exciting things in the world of startups. He's also run several ultra marathons. So today we're going to dive into a few cool things that, Charles has done and what he's working on. Charles, welcome.
Thanks, Louis. Nice to be on the other side of the mic that time.
I know, yeah. So for context, Charles interviewed me earlier in the week, and so now it's my turn to kind of dive in. And probably the best place to start, like with most podcasts, is just sort of give the guests a bit of context on, who you are, maybe a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Right. Started my first business probably 12 ago-ish, was in drop shipping, bought shit from China for $1, resold it for 50 in Canada and local markets. So I was
Wow.
like, oh, money, profit, and that's the first insight for people. You start in business to make money, not to save the world. Like once you experience what it feels like to make $50 in 1 minute vs making $10 an hour in a normal job, you're like, wow, okay, entrepreneurship is for me. Traveled the world after that, was in a student exchange, so went to Hong Kong. I co-founded the first nootropic business with a partner back then. I also co-founded an agency with my first mentor. He saw a lot of potential in me, so he's like, okay, I'm going to give you 35% of that company. 8 months later, I decided to turn by my own, which was probably insulting to him, but I learned a lot from that experience, namely that I could make money from a completely different time zone at the other side of the world with a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. So I was like, okay, how can I scale that? I started my own agency, targeted realtors, made 30K MRR from that. And I was sort of afraid to leave Quebec, Canada, because realtors are really physical people. They like to meet you and so forth. But yeah, I sold my car, sold everything I had, and booked a flight to Oaxaca, Mexico, met my wife on Tinder. And from there, we traveled the world together, ran multiple businesses, had a lot of failure, a couple of successes. And yeah, I've been learning ever since, read a bunch of books, probably 200, 300 per year. Nowadays, I read Wikipedias, probably 10 Wikipedias a day on any topics. I love reading, I love learning, I love podcasting, interviewing people like you, learning from them, making content out of it, quite obsessed with software and AI too. So constantly testing out new technology, getting better on a daily basis, making a shitload of money, and hopefully making an impact on this planet Earth and converting people into entrepreneurs.
Man, I love it. There's so much amazing stuff in there to unpack, and thanks for sharing the journey. But the first I want to go to, tell me about the first ever sale that you made in business. Do you remember that exact moment?
I don't remember that, but I remember making a cell naked. Not sure why, but yeah, I made a cell naked. Not sure if should tell that, but let me think here. Yeah, it was probably, well, the first memorable one was the first one that I mentioned in this drop shipping business.
Hmm.
So like buying something for $1, like a watch of some kind, and yeah, selling it for 50, or as these collections cards and so forth. Used to also buy these Invicta watches that they didn't sell them like physically. So I bought them online and I sold them physically. So I'd buy the thing for 125, I'd sell it for 300. These sales were quite memorable because I would get good cash. Now, I do remember my first agency sell, which was 4,000 bucks for a realtor's website. So after I left my partner to start my own agency, he left me with a very important skill, which was cold calling. So with him, I started cold calling 200 people a day to sell LED lights. I learned that from him, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that to start my own business. So I just scrape the shit out of all realtors in Quebec, Canada, had a list of probably 11K contacts, and I called probably 100 a day. And this guy, Simon Bégin, he's a top realtor. He drives golf ball for 300 yards. Yet he's like very good at that. He does competitions or 400 yards even that he smashes the golf ball too. And this guy, he took me 2 weeks to close 4,000 bucks WordPress websites with like 8 pages.
Oh, nice. It's always that first sale that gives you that validation, right? It's like, this is possible. It's like, yeah, I think a lot of people who may be starting out in entrepreneurship don't experience that yet. And once they do, it's like, I'll never forget the first sale I made. Yeah, it was a very, very memorable moment. But Charles, talk to me about like, there's obviously got a lot of things going on. Like, and it seems to me like your specialty is really going from 0 to 1, right? So like, do you have a process and framework for when you're like building a company, you test an idea and then it's like, do you have a process for like, okay, this one is one I'm going to scale and this one I'm just going to throw away, right? Tell me about that.
Yes. Yes. By the way, I remember the first sale of my nootropic business. That was a PayPal of $26. And that was also quite memorable because we launched Facebook ads and we weren't sure if anyone would buy that product in which we invested 60K.
Wow.
Now the process of 0 to 1ing is a science. Yes, I start with cold email. So I use Apollo, send grids to reach out to 10,000 contacts with 50,000 emails per month per account, right? I have multiple accounts. And yes, I start with something that I'm good in mind, and something that I love, sort of the Ikigai model. So what can I offer to the world? What can I get paid for, etc. I also look for pain points in the market. I talk to so many people on my podcast. I talk to clients and I write down their keywords, right? Their pain points. And then I use these in my campaigns as headlines, and then I develop an email from that. So a couple of examples today. Can I share my screen
Yeah,
on
of
this
course.
phone? Let me just share that disabled.
You can share now.
Right. So this is my calendar, by the way. It's pretty calm week, but that's a result of my efforts. So yeah, today, for example, agencies don't scale. That's a headline. It's controversial, right? So your additional MRR to your agency, they're hooking you up. Most agencies suck. Hormozy is right. Like, so all these headlines, and then I'm gonna write an email of that on Apollo. And then I'm gonna test for open rates, the replies, the quality of the meetings that I get, the cash that I get from these clients.
Mhm.
And if it's crickets for like 2 weeks, I'm just gonna shut it down. If it's a startup, right? So if it's an offer that I have, I don't know, like a affiliate program as a service, right? I would get you a bunch of affiliate to sell your program. If I see that people don't have interest for that because they think affiliate is scammy or spammy, then I'm just gonna shut it down. I'm gonna ask questions to all the peer network groups that I'm a member of. I have my own level96.com. I'm going to ask folks on my podcast, what do they think about this idea? So I'm going to take all of these sources of data and I'm going to try to make sense out of it. It's more of an art than a science. Anyone telling you the contrary is pretty much lying. Product market fit is this moving thing. It's not stable. It's like this little thing with wings in Harry Potter that like Harry tries to catch many times. It's really hard to catch. And once you do, it's like gone again, right? So you need to constantly be testing. And after you've done scale, after you've talked to that many people, talking to people and prospects is another tip here. Well, you just got it in your gut, like, oh, this is something that I like doing. This is something I can make loads of money, right? I'm not talking about a couple of $100, might be like 10, 20, 30K in a short amount of time. It scales, right? You need some capital to scale business. And yeah, once you do, you might want to scale it to the sky, bring it to the next level. But then scalability is its own problem, as you probably know. It's not because you have 100K business that it's gonna go to 1 million the next year and then the next one after 10 million. That's a very complex problem. It's not my specialty. It's more 0 to 1. 0 to 1 requires a lot of balls as well,
Mhm.
a lot of guts, like to be able to go out there and not be afraid of what people think of you and evaluate feedback objectively, right? Like when I take feedback, I had a client give me feedback before that call, and it's fully, I'm like a tree, right? I don't move, I observe, I don't judge. I don't judge myself. I don't judge a client. I store the feedback. And later on, when I go and for a long run or meditate, I'm going to make sense out of that feedback. So it's a long process. Also, you need to digest. And most people are always on the go. They don't recover, so they don't stand a chance against 0 to 1 ERS like me or product market fit. You need to give it some time, be patient, and completely rewire your mindset.
No, it's interesting, man, because it is a totally different skill set going from 0 to 1 versus 1 to 10, then from like 10 to 50 to 100 plus. Like, do you have aspirations to, obviously I don't have the full context you may have already, but do you have aspirations to build like one company that does, let's say $100 million? Or for you, is it just kind of lifelong of like building these companies, getting them to the 0 to 1 sort of mark?
Yeah. Well, 0 to 1 doesn't mean 0 to 1 million, right? Like I
Of
have
course, yeah.
$1 trillion goals. So it's mostly gonna be through AI agents, that are gonna work for me, scale my businesses, and most importantly, add value to the world. Because I don't think you can get rich in a scalable manner by only taking. You need to be at the right place at the right time. So multiply yourself and play the quantity game, the speed game. I play
Mhm.
these two games way more than I play the quality game.
Mhm.
For scaling business, I also think AIs would be better than I. 0 to 1 is a lot of creativity as well, which AIs are tough to reproduce. But yeah, one company making $100 million, not on my mind specifically yet. Yeah, I think it's more like an ecosystem that scales. That's more what I have in mind. So in terms of moonshots, what I have right now is, well, I mean, they're not really in the moonshot category, but they're in the certainly 6 or 7 figures, buying and selling businesses, helping people do so, pulling the trigger myself as well. In terms of moonshots, I do have a biohacker GPT that I'm building with a partner. This one could be very valuable. And yeah, sells GPT as well. That's we're slowly but surely building but it's more like creating an ecosystem and choosing top products from the get-go. So one of my newborn this year is called ycvest.com. So I believe that Y Combinator companies are, the best products in the world. So if I take them from the source, interview them on a podcast, create a community from that, and take charge of their go-to-market purely on commission and affiliate, I think that one can certainly reach $100 million quite quick. Um, and yeah, like YC companies, they're top, right? So when you're selling a product that really solves a top problem, and the founders, they're super geeks, like super engineers, I do think that yeah, the dollar should come. They're serving people, they're solving great problems, they're helping the world. So that thesis at least I think can lead to yeah, the $100 million business you're talking about.
No, cool, cool. So for you, it's really building an ecosystem, and I like the fact that you're like rapidly testing. Like I think speed is something a lot of people lack. They go, "Oh, I'm going to try this idea and go at it for 4 years," but it's like you literally can waste 4 years with an idea that doesn't work, right? So you're trying to get product market fit immediately through cold email, and then yeah, continue to build that ecosystem. But let's talk about cold email for a second because I've done quite a bit of this myself. I started emailing businesses before I knew there was this world of cold email, right? Like because for me, I've noticed some big changes in the last 6 to 12 months, right? About a year ago, I was averaging 80% open rates across, around 30,000 email sends a month. I was getting around a 10 to 12%, sorry, 8 to 10% reply rate, which those numbers from my research and talking to a lot of people were really good, right? But those have absolutely gone off a cliff since Google's introduced these new things and the market's getting more and more saturated. So what changes have you observed over the last 6 to 12 months in the cold email world?
Right. On my side, I'd say none
Mhm.
because my systems are performing pretty well. I'm using SendGrid, and SendGrid is well aware of the Yahoo and Google anti-spam tactics, quote unquote. So I haven't noticed that. I certainly noticed it, and was it because of the market or my own efforts? But like 2 years ago, I've got into a bad spam problem. Like one of my entire account was flagged. I was on Spam House, and for that, yeah, I had stuck with a bunch of people. One of these persons were Benny Rubin from Senders.co. At first, I had him on my pod, and he was like kind of resistant because we're sort of competitors. Because I also do deliverability on my end. Then we became friends. I invited him to my mastermind, and now he's a client. He literally paid me a couple of days ago to help me with some stuff. For me to help him with some stuff. So this guy helped solve my deliverability problem. I would say like the top three advice for deliverability is like one, the setup, use SendGrid. plug 5 mailboxes on your Polo account, to send good stuff to the right people, right?
Mhm.
So it's like send proper offers that are well thought out, that are unconventional, that are different. And generally speaking, third, keep it short and sweet, right? The less words you have, the less probability you have of getting spam. And one extra tip for people, if you're gonna start your Apollo account with a SendGrid setup, which is the right way to do, like, there's no other better way, is to start with a podcast campaign, like invitation as a title of the campaign, and then the email says, hey Charles, look, top leads up and I'd like to have you on my podcast, can I send you more info? You're going to get like 80% open rate from the get-go, and you're going to flag your account as in the green, as a good account that does not send spam, right? And from there it's really hard to decline under like 40%, which, yeah, starts to be worrying for me. My average open rate nowadays, I'd say it's like 60 to 70%. What about yours?
I think mine's still around 60, but it was a big drop from 80. So I've experimented with a lot of different lead scrapers, lead sources, but I've never actually found something that has beaten this guy that I have who goes and just scrapes people from LinkedIn. I don't know what his tech stack is, but I've tested pretty much every platform like Apollo, LeadRocks, Listkit, all these new ones, and nothing is compared to the guy going and getting them, because obviously my kind of belief, and it makes sense, is that when there's these databases, they're the same leads that everyone is just getting, right? So it's like I want quality people who meet our avatar perfectly, like you said, the right info, sorry, the right email to the right person. But yeah, I mean, ours are currently.
One quick comment on Apollo is that people also validate these emails at scale since it's crowdsourced, right? So it's
Hmm.
actually an advantage to have many people send. On a daily basis, they validate their emails, and there's no other platform that does that at this price. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if people constantly get spam, they might hit that report as spam button easier.
Yeah, so ours are around 50 to 60 at the moment, which, yeah, significant drop, but I'm very bullish on that idea of yours. Like I did the exact same thing through Twitter last year, right? Because Twitter, there's a million auto DM softwares now, and everyone is like, "Hey, Lewis, you need more leads. Hey, you need that." And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to set up a campaign and just test it, right? I'm like, "Hey, you want to?" It was kind of like do a podcast, and I'll turn it into like an article and get it submitted to one of our, media partners, for example. And I sent 300, and I had about 50 people that wanted to jump on, which on a place like Twitter where it's super saturated, it's you know it was very good. I made a lot of good connections from that. So like I do love that idea of like, when you start cold emailing, just start a podcast, because yeah, you meet people firstly, and secondly you get that trust in the spam servers or whatnot, that you're a legit person, you're not spamming anyone. Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea. And on that topic, I know you've interviewed around 10,000 people now. What's the most memorable interview you've ever done in terms of you interviewing a guest, and why?
Yeah, it was a recent one with Juan Betancourt. He's the ex-CEO, ex-CMO of Puma when they turned it around in like 2004, ex-CEO of Decathlon USA, Decathlon, and but it's Decathlon because it's a French company. And yeah, this guy nowadays has a company. It's called Human Intelligence, and yeah, it's not his company necessarily, but like his insights. And like how open he was. This guy does like an ayahuasca retreat every quarter. Like every 3 months, he does plant medicine,
Wow.
and how open he was. Like he was this no bullshit type of guy. And these are really my favorite humans. They're sort of contrarians. They're fully transparent, right? They're fully speaking their truth, no corporatism. Um, and he was like, yeah, my relationship with my wife has never been like calm waters, right? But all of her friends that had a calm relationship, they're now divorced. It's like, huh, truth.
Mm.
And yeah, like all the insights that he had, that are not necessarily from this intellectual IQ world. It's like he goes fishing in a different pond to get his insights.
Mhm.
Uh, Sixth dimension,
Mhm.
and that guy's really next level. So that's one that I can remember. But I mean, I had a bunch of great ones like yeah, Aubrey de Grey about longevity because I want to live forever. I had a bunch of cool AI ones, like with this YC founder that now instead of employing software engineers, he has 5 AI agent coding 24/7 for him, gathering customer feedback, modifying this, improving the speed, So
Wow.
it's really like a portal into the future of what will happen, So yeah, really blessed for that. But like most people I interviewed, they're not like high performers. Even if they're CEOs and founders, like that's an insight right there. A lot of people, they tag themselves as something. And my respect still goes to them. It's an aspiration, but they don't really walk the talk. They're not intense. They're just yeah, they're mostly there for the titles, the vanity.
Hmm. So when you say high performer, do you mean in a sense in terms of the work environment or like as a person as well? Because I know you are obviously quite a high performer in the sense you've done all these ultras, you're doing 100 meetings a week, like that stuff that like only sort of like a high performing person can do. So do you mean in any specific way when you say that?
Yeah, I have a list of around 50 criterias, and I mean these are mine, so I could be wrong about the definition of high performers, but generally it's someone that's ambition, um, out outruns, yeah, their action on a daily basis. So they constantly want more. They're not concerned with what society and people think of them for sure. They're contrarian. They're critical thinkers. They know how to get the information in the right spots, and yeah, they don't fall in the trap of comfort, right? Like I was discussing that with my last meeting, like account managers making 300K a year. These are stagnating motherfuckers, as David Goggins would say. I mean, they're comfortable, they wait for the leads to come in, they all they need to do is close, and these people, they don't have much of a future, so they won't hire my client/friends for his coaching services. They don't give a shit to improve. They just want the money, the comfort, the retirement, Oh, the pain, please stop. Um, Generally, high performers have a really nice relationship with pain. They dance with it. They constantly want to get better. And they understand that, yeah, comfort is the enemy, like comfort doesn't really make you happy. You get desensitized to stuff, to all these luxuries that you're buying yourself. So for example, last weekend I was calmly running a 5K in the mountains, and I decided to make a scorching 21 kilometers under the sun with no sunscreen. I came back home and I was like burned to the second degree. My wife screams like, why did you do that? Well, I needed to get out of the zone. I was like sick or it was allergies actually, like for the past 4 weeks, and I felt that I was stagnating, And
Mhm.
when that happens, you need to get the fuck out of your comfort zone. And that's
Mhm.
why people like David Goggins, they're full of wisdom, like it's not necessarily the intellectuals of our time that people need to listen to, but mostly nonsense, no nonsense people like Goggins that will just tell you to get off your ass and go run a 30K right now.
I love that, man. There's those times where like for example, one thing I can remember was like, when I'm in a cold shower and I'm like going to do 30 seconds, I'll say something like, okay, if I don't go for at least a minute, my mom's going to die or something like that. So then in my mind, I'd switch into this other gear where I'm like, there's no way I'm getting out of the shower, even though it's a hypothetical. So it's like, I like those times where it's like you have set yourself a target, but then you're like, you know what? I'm just going to keep going, right? Because it's almost like the joy from the pain. Like you push yourself and you feel like you've accomplished something that you didn't think you could. I think that's where like a lot of, obviously there's chemical effects like dopamine and whatnot, but I think that's where you find a lot of joy is like on the other side of that challenging stuff, which is why, I've been going to the gym since I was in friggin', year 12. And I remember one of my friends saying, oh, why are you wasting so much time in the gym? And like I look at now where they're at and now where I'm at, I'm like, just from that one habit, it's helped me so much as a person, right? Resilience, persistence, discipline, and yeah, like getting out of the comfort zone initially. But yeah, I love that stuff, man.
A dungeon of pain. That's how I call the gym, Props to anyone that puts their feet into a gym. It's a dungeon of pain. I mean,
Mhm.
we see people fucking around, like checking their phones, like new generations, but still props to them just to go in that dungeon of pain and face their worst enemy, which is themselves, which is this little voice telling you, oh, you're gonna die. To me, it's sort of this OCD voice sometimes, like, oh, you're gonna do 10 reps. It's gonna say, okay, yeah, you stop at 10, right? You stop at 10. But for anyone knowing the Parkinson law, it's like whatever you stipulate in your mind,
Mhm.
your brain's going to create the adequate amount of energy to reach a 10.
Mhm.
So don't set any numbers, you know. And Goggins, he goes for muscle failure.
Mhm.
So he doesn't give a shit about numbers. Numbers are good at some point, but yeah, sometimes I just love going in psycho mode and not going one more, as Ed Milet says, but just going in fuck you mode. Fuck you mode is like saying, okay, little voice, you're gonna stop speaking now, and I'm just gonna let the body do its thing. And next thing I know, I'm doing like 20 reps instead of 10, you know?
Dude, like literally, this happened to me about 2 days ago where I had set up on so I was doing, like X amount of reps for X amount of weight. And then like it felt kind of easy. And so like I didn't think about the next set. I just put it up a couple of notches. And I went from doing 10 reps on like 65 kilos and I did, I think, 17 on 77 kilos without even thinking. I was like, it's so true. I think the less you actually think about that number and you just really push yourself, you get into that zone. Yeah, the magic happens there.
Yeah, like Goggins says, you don't know me, son.
Hell yeah. Well, Charles, we can kind of wrap things up here, but one last thing I want to ask, like, what's one insight that you'd want to give to the audience in terms of whether they're, already in business or maybe looking to get into business? What's one insight that you would give them if they were looking to, take things to the next level?
Yeah, if you're not in business, stop listening to that little voice of yours and go start a business. You know, it's like me setting myself for 10 reps. You have so much more inside you. Just let yourself be yourself, you know, like us humans were survival machine from the moment you left your dad's dick, you know, as a spermatozoid, you swam and you beat all the millions of other spermatozoids out there. So we're made to thrive, we're made to compete, you know. So like go for the business. And also this is fully aligned with the AI age. The AI age, there will be bots, there will be better employees, right? Yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. The AIs will be very good at that and they won't fail. They're always 10 on 10 energy. If you have a business already, well, align yourself with that new reality. And I mean, I could go like really contrarian here, but like all the culture stuff and hiring people. I hired and fired 1,000 employees in the last years, and the best move I ever did was going full in on AI and not spend my time recruiting and managing people, but instead, you know, hiring AIs and plugging in my systems so that I can have a nice life. You know, go run with the dogs on a daily basis, go in the mountains, do ATV, do biking, go to the gym, swim, all of that. So that's because I have systems, have a nice life. So align yourself with that AI reality that's upon us, you know, question information, think for yourself. You know, there's so much disinformation nowadays, all the bullshit you see on TikTok, you know, go read some Wikipedias on a daily basis, put some new stuff in your mind on any topics, doesn't matter, you know, like whatever interests you, whatever serotonin patch you're going to take, inform and think for yourself so that yeah you can influence other in a positive manner and so that the world scales and doesn't destroy itself.
I love that, man. I couldn't agree more. And Charles, where can people find you?
CharlesCormier.com or Charles Cormier on Google.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you coming on and keep in touch.